Hey guys, this is the practice guide for this year's TMEA All-State Etude number 1, which is Kohler Opus 33 number 9. And this is a companion video to the performance video I released in August on the Etude, and that will be linked at the end of this video and in the comments below so that you can easily access it and hear all of the concepts that we talk about today put into practice in the Etude. So what we're doing today can be summed up into 3 big sections. The first is like general basics, things like notes, rhythm, articulation, breathing, and dynamics. Next, we'll do troublesome spots and how to practice them, where I'll give specific practice tips for some of the trickiest areas of the Etude. And then the third thing is creating stamina and how to polish your final performance of this. So let's get started. We're going to talk about tempo first. So this edition says quarter note equals 88, and TMEA is tracking right along with that. They're suggesting quarter note equals 84 to 88, and that's a really tiny dynamic range. So if you're a little below it or a little above it, that's going to be fine. Just, anywhere in that general range is going to be great. The other thing to note from TMEA is there are 2 errors in this edition. The first is here in measure 16. These 2 Fs in beat 2 should be F sharp, and that will go along with the intervallic pattern that's in 15 and 16. So make sure you have, it'll be E sharp, F sharp, E sharp, F sharp here at the end of beat 1 and into beat 2. And then the other error is in the last measure here, this dotted half note should just be a half note. So 2 beats on the half note, grace notes up to this quarter note C, that's beat 3, and then the rest is beat 4. All right, there are no weird accidentals in here, no double sharps or things that are, way outside the normal range. But what you do have to think about with your accidentals is you have to make sure they are carrying through the measure. There's tons of notes in these measures. And you just need to be aware if the sharps are carrying through. In terms of rhythm, mostly it's running 16th notes, but like here at the very beginning, we have this rhythm, which is 8th note and 2 16ths. This does pop up, and because this edition is so crowded on the page, it can be easy to miss them. So, keep your eyes out, look for them anytime there's an 8th note with 2 16th notes, and make sure you're getting that rhythm. For articulation, the big things to remember in here are there are some articulation patterns, and one of them is that notes will slur into the next beat, or they will slur like over the bar line and into the next measure. So you really want to make sure you are paying attention to where the slurs are starting and where they are ending, because sometimes it's completely right on the beat, starting on the beat, ending on the beat, and sometimes it's not. Something that I think is a little unclear is here in measure 10. So this is the 3rd line, 2nd measure. This is all slurred. It kind of looks like the first note is tongued and then there's 3 slurred, but after consulting several editions, it really is all 4 of these notes slurred in beat 1. So you want to make sure you mark that pretty clearly in there. All right, so in terms of breathing, there's definitely a breathing pattern in this edition where we breathe after the first note of many of the measures. And this is usually a really good pattern to follow because it allows you to resolve harmonically into that next measure, and then take your breath and then continue on with like the next musical thought. There are 3 places in here where I think it's a good idea to not follow that. And I'm going to show you where they are. The first one is right here at the end of measure 4. So like in my part, I've just put like a big breath mark there. And that is because when we start here, you are doing this pattern twice in the line, and I think it gives a cleaner start if you just take the breath back here. That way you can do the pattern, you know, in its full form there, and also here, and actually it comes back down here as well. The next place is after measure 16. So that's right here. And again, this pattern in 17 is going to be so much easier if you're not tonguing the first one and then slurring the other three, because this is like a repeating arpeggio pattern right here. So I would take the breath here instead of after the first note. And then the last place is after measure 36, which is right down here. And again, it's just so the pattern fits better in the fingers, because you've got 4 of the same pattern in this measure, and you're really not going to want to breathe after the first one and then try to get the pattern started again. That's my personal preference. I mean, you can follow it the way it's written on the page, and that's going to be fine. But I have found that these 3 breaths here that I've just marked in, it does make things flow a little smoother for the fingers. So you can try those things out if you want. Obviously, like, you're not going to be penalized in your audition if you do these kind of breaths. It's a preference for making it a little easier technically for you. The only other thing I want to say about breathing is don't hold the last note before you take a breath. I have found in my teaching of this that lots of students, they'll get to the end of a phrase and then they'll really hold on to that last note before they take the breath, and it really disrupts the flow of the etude. So, you know, just finish out the phrase, you know, get right off the note, take your breath, and then jump right back in. All right, so we do have dynamics in here, and we have a lot of dynamics as you look down the page. There's a range of, I think it's piano up to forte, so 4 definitive areas in there, but we also have a lot of dynamic swells and decrescendos. So you're gonna wanna really look at what your dynamics are doing. Like, some of them are night and day dynamics, where, you know, mezzo forte and then piano and then mezzo forte. So those you want to make as stark of a contrast as you can, and then the other things where you've got like the little pushes in the middle, you know, make them gradually up and then gradually back down. And so the dynamics can really be used to help create phrasing in here, because it's just a million running notes, and it would be easy for this to sound boring and mechanical. But if you use these dynamic swells to your advantage, you can make it sound a little bit more musical. The other thing about this is, you know, this etude should hum along, you know, like with exact rhythmic precision. You do not want to use rubato in here at all. So for your musical phrasing and shaping, you're really relying on dynamics and then little sparks of vibrato here and there, mostly on those 8th notes that appear every once in a while. You definitely want to make sure you've got some, you know, great vibrato on those, just to add a little sparkle and interest in here. Okay, let's move on to troublesome spots and how to practice them. So a question that I frequently get asked with these etudes is, what B flat should I be using, you know, in this section or in the whole etude? And which B flat you use is kind of a personal decision. If you want to use thumb B flat, or, you know, the first finger B flat as I call it, or if you want to use the B flat lever. Now, sometimes one of the 3 of them is like more of an obvious choice. You know, just it's going to make more sense for the fingers. If you really want to know what I do for my B flats in any of these etudes, all you need to do is watch my performance video and like make sure you can really see, the screen well, because I angle the videos so that you can see my fingers. You can see what fingers I'm using. You can see what trill fingers I'm using, if I'm using alternate fingers, and you can definitely tell if you're looking in a certain section, you know, which B flat I'm using. And I do use all three. So yeah, that's, you know, if you have questions about B flats, A sharps, whatever, definitely take a close look at my fingers as I'm playing in my performance videos, and that will answer those questions. Okay, so the first technical passage we're going to talk about here, though, is measure 6 and 8. Boy, this is challenging for sure. So we've got these low notes, and then we've got the repeated B's above. The best way you're going to want to practice this, because you don't want the B's, the repeated B's, sticking out. You want the low notes to be the thing that's popping out. So I would suggest, as you're practicing along here, you know, do measure 5 and then only the low notes in measure 6, and then do measure 7 and only the low notes in measure 8, and that will help you really isolate where your air needs to go to get there, and it's just completely leaving the B's out so that they're not even an issue. So it's going to sound like this. And that'll help you really lock in on what the air needs to do. And then after you're getting a consistently good sound on those low notes, then you can start putting in the upper B's. And I suggest doing it slowly at first, so that you can guide the air up. Like, you kind of want to keep low air on the B's and just, you know, move your embouchure to guide the air up. So that the upper B's are nice and quiet like that. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is measure 19 to 25. So this is the section of all the thirds. And thirds are notoriously difficult for us just because we get tons of blippy fingers in here. And I can't stress this enough. This section has to be clean. You cannot have blips. It's a complete deal breaker on the judging panel. If you're, you know, fast enough and have all sorts of style, but you are blippy in here, it's definitely not going to score well. So work at your finger combinations, and you can do that by practicing in rhythms for this. And I don't mean like 1E and a 2E and a, I'm talking like long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, and then do the reverse, short, long, short, long, short, long. You can even do like groups of 4 notes just to isolate a bit further. So here's what this is going to sound like if you're doing the long, short. So you hear the long, short, long, short, long, short, and then you can do the reverse of that. Like that. And then if you're going to do it in groups of 4, you put a pause in between. Like that. And it just helps you isolate some of the intervals and making sure you are really getting them clean. Now, if you still have lingering problems in this, like many students do, where most of it's clean, but you still have a couple little problem areas and you just can't seem to work it out, I love doing this. I do it all the time in lessons with students, and it is an eye-opener every time. It usually solves the problems. What you want to do is you want to record your fingers. Like, you want to set your camera so that you can just record your fingers as you're playing a section, but you want to record it in slow-mo so that when you go back and watch it, you're really seeing your fingers move super slow, and you're going to see where the discrepancies are. Which fingers popping up earlier, which fingers, going down late. It will absolutely show you what is not moving in sync with each other. I've saved a whole bunch of really epic, like finger blippy videos from my students this fall, and I got their permission to post them. So I'm going to post these as like a little quick tip video, so that you can see some of these things in action, and you can hear and see the blip happen, in slow-mo. So that is a great way to work out this section, specifically the section in thirds. Okay. So the next things we're going to talk about, the next couple measures, are air flexibility problems and issues. So the first one is in measure 25. And I like to call this like a crocodile moment. Let me see, I'm just going to get green out here because like crocodiles are green. But what we're having here is we've got these intervals that are getting gradually larger as we go along. So you've got to suddenly get your air, further up, then further down, then even further up, then further down. And it is definitely a challenge where you've got to work on your air placement and your lip flexibility. The next one is in measure 26, and it's this A to E that's at the end of beat 2 and the beginning of beat 3. So E is a touchy note anyway on the flute, high E. Likely to crack if your air isn't placed absolutely perfectly, and if your core support isn't strong enough. But going from E to A is even more challenging because the fingers don't move a whole lot, and it's actually E is a harmonic of A. So what you want to do to practice this is you just want to play the harmonic. So you play the A and then you lip it up to the E. And if you do that several times, that will show you where your air needs to travel. And then after you're nailing it confidently with the harmonic, then you can put the high E fingers down, and your high E should pop right into place. So it'll sound like this with the harmonic. So you just, get used to lipping it up there, and obviously it's not like super in tune with the harmonic, and then you want to put your real fingers down after you're used to doing it with the harmonic, so that you get a nice smooth interval there. So we have the same technique that we can use for the A to F sharp in measure 18 and in measure 24. So we've got two of those. Now, F sharp is not a direct harmonic of A because the E is. But you can do the same exercise and use a harmonic B for the F sharp. So your fingers go A and then like the next note up B, but you lip it up to the F sharp. So the fingers are not moving much, but your air is training to get up to that F sharp. So it'll be like this. And then you can put in the real F sharp fingering. Now, check your pitch on your high F sharp, and if it's sharp, you can always use your middle F sharp fingering. So instead of like here's your right hand on the flute. Instead of using this F sharp, you can use your middle finger F sharp in the right hand to bring the pitch down a little bit. But you know, check with your tuner, because not everybody's high F sharp is sharp. Different flutes sound different on different people. But yeah, use your harmonic to get the air in the right place, and then you can get the fingers going in on that from A to F sharp and get it smoother. All right, the next thing is measure 41. So that's way down here at the end. Now this measure has the only tempo change that we have in the etude. It's got this little ritardando here, so we're slowing down in the last 3 beats of the measure. Then you want to take this breath right here on the bar line, and then you start, and it's just like the beginning. So this is where the slowdown happens, but here's the technical challenge that we're facing, is getting this low C and this the 2 measures at 42 to 43 to sound just as vibrant and exciting as the first 2 measures of the etude do. It's easier up here at the top because we're fresher. We're down here, you know, 42 measures in, with all of this stuff that we've just done. We're a little fatigued by the time we get here. So you want to practice this. You want to practice it by starting at the top, you know, playing the first measure or first 2 measures with that great sound, and then come down here and do either, you know, just the last beat of 41, or you can do the whole measure of 41, and then make sure you can lock right in on this low C and get this measure started at the exact same tempo and sounding just like, you know, you've pressed play up here, and you're playing that. So that's going to sound like this. So getting that first measure started, and then jumping down to 41. And making sure you start, you know, nice and solid right there in 42. All right, then moving to the last line, we've got measure 46, 47, and 48. Now measure 46 and 48 are identical, so definitely practice those together. But what we have going on in all 3 of these measures is, after the C, we have all of these little chromatic groups of 2. And I like to mark them like this, with like a little V over them, just to section it out. If you think of this run as an arpeggio going up, it is way more difficult to nail it. If you think in these little groups of 2, mentally it helps your brain organize it better. And you can even practice it slurred in the groups of 2, just to help get your ear hearing it and to isolate your fingers and make sure you really are doing those little chromatic groupings. So it'll sound like this. And then you have the arpeggio down. Then the next measure, same thing. So practice those like that. Then after your fingers are locking in and your ear is locked in more on it, you can take the slurs out and just put one big slur over the measure. Okay, so that's pretty much it for like the big troublesome spots in here. Obviously there's, you know, just a ton of notes, a ton of different finger combinations, and you have to know what the notes are, and have clean fingers on all of those. So that leads us to building stamina, and then how do I get this polished? I've had a lot of questions in the last week or so about that. you know, I know my notes, I know, you know, the dynamics, but how do I make this sound cohesive? And how do I make it sound, you know, really, really good? You know, what's going to make it stand out? And honestly, this etude is such a beast. There's so many notes in here. You do, at this point, you need to be practicing it the whole way through, at least once a day. But in order to really master it, you're not just going to want to run it from the top. What you're going to want to do is divide it into sections. So you can do, you know, 2 lines at a time, you know, run them through, make sure it sounds great, you know, do the next 2 lines. You can do 4 lines at a time. That breaks it into 3 nice chunks. Or you can do all of the alike patterns together. So I'm going to show you all, like literally all of the patterns that repeat in here. And I've highlighted them like this. So you can take a screenshot of this, and basically then you go through and you practice by color. So you do all of the yellow things together, because those are the exact same things. And then you can play all of the orange things together. So I want to say there's, you know, 12 or 13 different, oh, I guess these are the 2 orange things, but there's like 12 or 13 different colors that I have here representing the different things. You can take a screenshot of this, but, you know, watch the difference between, I think this is blue, and then like these are blue, and then these are purple, and then this is even a different purple. So don't just practice everything that looks kind of blue or kind of purple, like really look carefully on that. But it's surprising how much stuff like these green things, you know, it's the same 3 exact measures there, but then this is the same notes. It's just in slightly different order. And even this last line is, you know, the same notes in a different order. So yeah, practice the alike things together. Then go back and practice the things that don't have any color on them. So like line 3, yeah, there's like little half step groupings in here, but it's not really going to be worth it to like say that it's just like these half steps, because they're not in the same kind of order. So go back through and do the non-patterned things. Then you've worked through the whole thing, you know, in smaller sections. Your brain isn't as fatigued because it hasn't just been reading, you know, 50 measures in a row. And then you can go back and you can still do a run through, and especially after practicing it in the patterns like this, you will find that your fingers really are so much more set than they were. So that is the best way to get your stamina, and really be polishing the different parts of this. All right, you guys, good luck on this etude. You know, I kind of hope I'm judging this one. I think I'll hear some pretty epic performances on it, but I wish you all the best in your all-state journey this year.